Do you feel like you keep overshooting your target? Are you constantly whiffing your flicks? Do you feel like your mouse is a jet that's taking off your disc sometimes? If so, you need to watch this video, because it's about time you get yourself a control pad.
Moved with the kick, 151 wrong. My haters sucking hard, telling I'm about to come. Asking me about love, baby, I'm not the one. I can't get my 2 cents, I got insufficient funds. I was in the, I've been in the gym. Ask me for my pronouns, I'll tell you that I'm him. When I shoot my shot, I don't even hit the rim. No airball, better believe it's going in. She wanted her lips in the mail, they tried to send me, cause 9 out of 10 doctors recommend me.
First of all, I wanted to mention that most of the pads in this video were sent out to me for review. And as always, all my opinions are my own, as they are with all of my videos and recommendations. Also, more than 84% of you guys still aren't subscribed, so make sure to do so if you're enjoying the content so far. So the lineup that I've got for you today are the following pads: the Endgame Gear EMC Plus, the Infinite Control from InfinityMice, the all-new LethalGamingGear Saturn Pro in soft, the orange Artisan Zero in soft, and also the Ghostglides Focus. All of these pads are control pads and overall very similar, with the main one standing out being the Ghostglides pad being a traditional rubber-based pad that generally looks and feels like an X-ray pad, but isn't one, and the Infinite Control having a custom polyurethane base that overall feels very similar to Poron. Besides these two pads, all of them are Poron pads and are same but different. The first pad I want to get out of the way is the Ghostglides Focus. Rich from Ghostglides told me that the main goal with this pad was to bring out their unique art with a high quality surface whilst remaining cost effective. They simply wanted to do their own thing for their first pad with a 250 unit limitation, and it's currently still available on Max Gaming and Ghostglides for around 33 euros. The Focus is 500 by 430 and 4mm thick, and it generally just feels like some sort of X-ray pad. The surface is pretty smooth with a tiny bit of texture. And when it comes to overall speed, this thing is definitely on the slower side of this entire lineup. But when we're comparing speed between all of these control pads, we really are talking about minute differences, since these are all incredibly similar, especially in dynamic friction. When it comes to rubber bases, I really do think that they're hated for no reason in the community. This whole Poron hype and consumerism has definitely got a bit too far in my opinion, and booting up CSGO on this pad gave me quite a reality check. Rubber bases like this one are really responsive and firm, and I think that it's a great consistent option for somebody who doesn't want to spend almost twice the amount for certain Poron pads these days. The only thing that I really disliked about this pad was that it's pretty thick together with the raised stitching as well. I personally would never buy a pad like this one these days, and for 33 euros I'd get this pad instead. The Infinite Control from InfinityMice is a red square that's available for $35. If you want to know all the details, you can check out my video up here. It's 490 by 420 and 3.5mm thick. It's got a custom polyurethane base. It comes shipped flat and double boxed. And if you don't mind the color, it's a really high quality pad for an affordable price. The Infinite Control is very controlled. It's not a mud pad, but it's very close to being one in my opinion. The stitching and overall quality of the pad is insane for $35. But for me personally, this thing is just a bit too slow. The base feels very similar to something like the soft Poron base in the Artisan pads, with the main difference being the Infinite Control being 0.5 millimeter thinner, and also the base material feels slightly more responsive. Or like some people would say, it's got slightly more rebound. Now we all know that Artisan pads are the best in the game when it comes to cloth pads. And since their pads are all available in either mid, soft or X-soft, I really do think that anybody looking for a pad will be able to find your new main when buying an Artisan pad. Since the weave on the orange Zero is slightly tighter compared to the original black Zero from back in the days, the surface feels ever so slightly faster now. And also the hair and dust issue has been completely eliminated now. And the Zero feels pretty textured and isn't nearly as smooth as something like the new Saturn Pro from LethalGamingGear. And compared to the rest of the pads in this lineup, I'd say that this is the most similar to the Saturn as well. The soft base that I have here is very responsive, but since it's 4mm thick, there's definitely still something to dig into for that extra control. But overall, I still think that it's simply the pad to get if you don't know what exactly you're looking for. Now, last but not least, the two new giants that everybody keeps mentioning in the community. The EMC from Endgame Gear and the new Saturn Pro in soft from LethalGamingGear. These pads are both available in either traditional or square sizes, and they also both go for around $50. The stitching and overall quality on both of these pads is absolutely immaculate, and they both come shipped flat and double boxed. The surface is basically the same on both pads, and it wouldn't surprise me if they both come from the same exact textile machine. But the EMC is slightly more textured and ever so slightly slower than the Saturn. But then again, we really are comparing one apple to another right now. And if you're interested in getting either of these pads, I'd simply suggest getting the one that is cheaper or more easily available to you. These are also both Rotter's pour-on bases, with the main difference being the thickness and density of the sponge. The Saturn Pro is actually 4mm thick, whilst the EMC is only 3mm thin. Despite this being the new soft version of the Saturn, this still feels quite a bit softer than an Artisan Soft. I'd personally say that this sits right in between an Artisan X Soft and Soft. And sadly, it's just simply not what I expected from a soft pad, so I'll have to wait for the mid to be able to call this my endgame control pad. The EMC from Endgame Gear has the most give in a pad that I have ever experienced, despite it being only 3mm thin. Here's what this pad sounds like with Dotskate's endgame. As you can hear, it requires basically no force to press into the pad. And of course, it's an absolute insane idea to use dot skates on really soft pads. And I would always recommend you to use larger pad skates like I have here at my Hardy-S Plus when using pads like these. But I guess some people are simply built different. I constantly get asked what skates I main personally, and since dot skates are only great on firmer pads unless you put absolutely zero pressure into the pad whilst aiming whatsoever, I use the normal core pad skates on every mouse that I can, since they're some of the smoothest skates out there and really easy to get for me here in Switzerland, especially since core pad is actually based in Germany. If I had to pick between either of these two pads, I'd definitely go for the Saturn, but only because I hate pads with really easy give like the EMC. I also think that using pour-on in bases this thin doesn't make much sense, especially for $50, but that's just my opinion. Talking about my opinion, when it comes to my opinion about all of these pads, I personally think that the Focus doesn't make much sense at 33 euros. The almost muddy feel of the Infinite Control is simply too slow for me personally. I also don't enjoy the EMC since I don't really see a benefit of using pour-on with a pad this thin at $30. And the Saturn Pro in soft is simply still a bit too soft for me personally, but I do think that it's the best all-around package for people living in the US. But other than that, the Artisan Zero is still my absolute favorite out of all control pads that I've tried so far.
Need I say more, Yodi gang?
Now, to the conclusion, which control pad should you pick up? If you're not enthusiastic and simply want a pad that looks cool, get the Focus. If you don't want to spend $50 or even more on a pour-on pad or want a slower control pad, get the Infinite Control. If you do want a pour-on control pad and live in a country where either the Saturn or the EMC is readily available for a good price, there's nothing wrong with getting either. Especially if you live in a country like Switzerland, Germany or Austria, Endgame Gear products are so easy and cheap to get compared to the competition. And once the new Saturn pads are in stock again over at Lethal, the Saturn Pro in soft is America's best readily available control pad for sure. However, if you're looking for the endgame do-all control pad, I still think that the Artisan Zero in soft is the way to go. That's about it for this video though. I really hope you enjoyed it, cause I definitely didn't. Comparing one black square to another these days really is like comparing two apples from the same tree, especially since almost all brands in our enthusiast community uses the same 2 to 3 manufacturers. I really want you guys to understand that it doesn't matter if you get this or the other black square, cause the differences really are minute, and the quality standard these days is sky high already. So don't sit there contemplating for weeks on which pad to get, cause in the end you'll still be throwing your team's ranked games on all of them. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Peace out.